We are on episode 3 of season 1 of Mystery Science Theater. This one is Mad Monster, but we also get the second edition of Radar Men from the Moon, a serial I'm starting to actually really enjoy. So Mad Monster is another black and white movie from 1942. Luckily, the one after this, Women of the Prehistoric Planet, is finally in color, and I find the color ones much more enjoyable. Also, the Invention Exchange on the Satellite of Love is better this time. I didn't show Mad's Invention Exchange last time because it was them putting essentially a nail to a chalkboard and screeching it and making a horrifying sound. I found quite annoying, but this Invention Exchange is a little more funny.
Oh, speaking of science, it's time to call Joel. We have to start the experiment. The movie's great this week.
Oh, yes. Come in, Joel, you fancy-pantsy Nancy boy.
Hey, sirs, I'm ready for this week's Invention Exchange. Bring it in a little bit, Cambot. This is a special purse I developed for women who are sick and tired of the constant threat of getting their purse snatched. See how it looks like an ordinary handbag? When street thugs open it, voila. Hell in a handbag.
Nice use of pain, Joel Meister. Now here's ours. As you know, toy manufacturers are always making their toys too safe. And what children want is realism.
And danger. That's why we created the acetylene-powered Thunder Lizard.
Yes, it's a role-playing game, and it comes complete with these costume glasses.
Just set up your field of play, then reach out and torch someone. Look at him go! Oh, it's gotta hurt.
Wow, that's really sick and twisted.
And after the scientists send them back into the theater, they get the short Radar Men from the Moon, part 2 of the 1952 serial. Now, this one is all action. The first one kind of set it up with our main character, Commander Cody, who has the ability to fly. Oh, he has like a jetpack, I think, but basically he can fly. Kind of like Superman. In this one, Commander Cody has an atomic weapon, and he's trying to run away from these aliens. And they actually have kind of a cool little space vehicle. This was over a decade before we would actually land on the moon. So the moon looks more like a desert in Arizona, which they comment on many times. But I don't usually like the shorts before the movie. I like the movie itself. Because a lot of the shorts that they'll start doing later on are ones from the 50s where it's like, how to be clean. Johnny has to prep his hair and brush his teeth. Do you brush your teeth? Kind of stuff like that. But this one's an actual film that they showed in theaters to be entertaining, and I find it actually very entertaining. And you can see the crew of Joel Hodgson, Tom Servo, and Crow T-Robot. That's Crow the Robot. If you're wondering what the T stands for. They do a lot better with their quips when they actually have something on screen to react to. That's why I always find the boring movies so much worse. And I think those episodes are worse too. If there's at least something going on screen, you can see the director's at least trying. They can react to it. And that's definitely what happens here.
That car back to the amusement park. That's an e-ticket ride, you know.
Yeah, but it sure is heavy. Is anybody after you? Not yet. Give me a hand with this. We've got to move fast.
Is it just me, or do those guys look like the crash dummies?
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle up.
He must have come this way. He couldn't have got by the guards at the Canyon Bridge. No, and he won't move very fast carrying that gun.
Those fins really keep it stable.
I didn't know they had plywood on.
Good. It's a moon mirage. Dolt. It died.
Those old two-cycles, you know.
We can't follow them in there.
Chocolate's coming right for you.
Never mind the gun!
Isn't that lava? Well, I guess they'll be cooked, but their hands will be clean. Promise action.
What would you do now, Crow?
I'd panic.
Panic? Tom?
Oh, same. No
Same?
question.
There's got to be a way out. Here it comes.
Whoa. This must be what it's like to be in the stomach of someone drinking a malt. What do you think? This
Look out.
We then get a host segment where Tom Servo falls in love with a blender. I think maybe the joke they're trying to make here is that he obviously is a gumball machine. At least the top of him is a gumball machine. So he likes a blender. It's okay. I don't know. I feel like they just had some stuff lying around. They're like, we have a blender. They go, oh, why don't they just have like Tom Servo fall in love with it for a second? I mean, he's a gumball machine. Maybe gumball machines and blenders like each other. And then Joel drinks it. The Mystery Science Theater crew is creative. They do things that you don't expect. Then we get to the actual movie, The Mad Monster, a 1942 black and white horror film that was produced and distributed by the quote-unquote Poverty Row studio. Producers Releasing Corporation. Award for most generic name for a studio I've ever heard. Which is a term for the small Hollywood studios in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s that did very low-budget movies. And sometimes they would sneak in extra violence that you wouldn't necessarily pass by the code censors at that time. Fortunately, I'm not going to see that in Mad Monster, but movies from the 30s like Maniac have some kind of crazy violence and nudity in them. But while I think this movie is okay, it's once again a downgrade from what we saw last time in Robot vs. the Aztec Mummy, where the film quality is extremely grainy. This is from 42, the last movie was from 58, and the sound quality is not as great either, though it's not as bad as Episode 1, The Crawling Eye. So, I'd say it's somewhere in between. You do see the crew getting a lot more comfortable with their commentary. They even make some rare political jokes, making fun of Republicans, which you don't see them do very much. Well, we learn about their politics later on when they left the show, since everybody and their grandma has a Twitter account now, so you can see TV's Frank yelling at conservatives anytime you want to, if you're into that. But they keep the Mystery Science Theater audience pretty even, but they do throw in some jokes at Republicans here, which is interesting.
The animal loves to kill without regard to personal safety.
Republicans?
Such an army will be invincible, gentlemen. Just picture, gentlemen, an army of wolfmen, fearless, raging,
shedding,
every man a snarling animal.
and an army of people behind him with pooper scoopers.
Millions of such animal men.
I don't think they should let him get on the furniture. He's getting all tangled up.
Even now, he'd like to be at his work.
Ripping out throats.
The agent has brought about a complete transition from man to wolf.
Your crazy experiments are a disgrace to science.
Mr. Mooney.
So this episode starts out quite strong. As I mentioned in my last episode, when they have stuff to react to on the screen, they can make some pretty funny jokes, as they do in the beginning. But man, does the middle of this movie just slow to a complete halt. They have a beginning and they have an end. They have absolutely no middle. So even the Mystery Science Theater crew can't save this one. And as I was watching this, it reminded me of another movie. It's called Mad Monster, so I thought it was going to be a Frankenstein type thing. But no, it's actually a werewolf. So what are they trying to rip off? What came out a year before that this very low budget movie is trying to recreate? And I looked it up, and it is indeed The Wolfman, the 1941 Universal movie. An actual good movie that this is absolutely trying to ride on that one's success. Jurassic Park comes out, a million different dinosaur movies, mid and late 90s, that tried to ride off the wave of Jurassic Park, and yeah, it was the same back then too. There weren't many werewolf movies. In fact, The Wolfman was really the second that Universal had done. But once that one comes out and is successful, a bunch of other people try werewolf movies as well. Yet for some reason they decided to name this one Mad Monster without putting some type of Wolfman or Werewolf of the Forest, which is what it looks like. So I can imagine people being very confused. You get very few kills. You get a bunch of him wandering around on a shoddy looking stage that's supposed to look like a forest, and he looks ridiculous the entire time. The Universal Wolfman actually looks like a wolfman. This Mad Monster wears a nice suit the entire time, which looks ridiculous, and just looks like he grew out his facial hair. This is indeed a bad movie. Well, it seems like the 1940s got a little bit of the shaft for horror movies. I will say I'm not an expert on movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but I've seen a lot more horror movies from the 30s and 50s than the 40s. A lot of that having to do with censorship issues. Pre-code Hollywood had some pretty wild stuff like Jekyll and Hyde, and even some of the crime movies like Scarface. And the 50s went pretty buck wild with monster movies. The 40s, not as much. A lot of good film noir, not as much horror. But there were some good ones like Cat People. Cat People's a good movie that stands up. And this one could have just kind of done something like that. Like, just do stalking scenes like cat people. Do something besides him just wandering around the woods. Try to build some tension. Why am I explaining this?
Climb on, sister. Are you riding with me or ain't you?
And I think another example of them choosing 3 movies in a row for their first 3 episodes that really, really are quite terrible. Luckily, the 4th one, Women of the Prehistoric Planet, is actually quite enjoyable, and they have a lot to react to on that one. That'll be the next episode, but this one is hard to get through. The mad scientist really reigns as a crazy dictator. He doesn't laugh maniacally or make any jokes. He just comes off as cruel and is using his gardener to inject him with this serum that turns him into a wolfman. And you almost feel sorry for the gardener, since whenever he talks, it's very clear he has no idea what's going on. And they seem to be hinting that he actually might be mentally incapacitated a little bit.
Why does he keep asking me all them questions?
Well, all newspaper men are like that. He doesn't mean anything by it.
He's just a jerk.
You go ahead. He won't bother you anymore.
This is not a essential Mystery Science Theater viewing, and is one of the reasons a lot of people start on Season 2 and not Season 1. But we're starting on Season 1, and the next episode is quite good. Stay tuned for that one. We also get a funny host segment where Crow and Tom Servo try to figure out this movie, and I always do like the host segments where they talk about the movie itself, and make a point that a lot of people have made. If it's a werewolf that looks like something from Dog Soldiers, you can kind of see how it would be able to eat and rip someone apart, and maybe even ingest them. But when it's just some larger dude bumbling around in a 3-piece suit, well, could they really eat a human?
Is the Wolfman actually eating his victims, or is he just simply mauling them in this movie?
Well, that's one thing we don't know, Tom Servo. You know, back then, all the violence was implied, you know. Today on Earth, there's nothing left to the viewer's imagination in movies. You know, it's not at all uncommon to see a complete on-screen evisceration in complete Dolby stereo sound and widescreen Technicolor.
Wow, that really sounds neat. But Joel, say a wolfman eats a guy, a normal person weighs in about 150 or 200 pounds. Does that mean the wolfman weighs 300 to 400 pounds after just one meal?
Well, what you have to understand, Crow, is that this is a science fiction movie. It's pretend, it's not real, and besides, a human being can't eat a whole other human being, at least not in one setting. You know?
Especially if he fills up on bread first.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, hey, Joel. What if this guy goes into this thing a vegetarian? Does he start rampaging victory gardens? Does he become the terror of the produce aisle?
Yeah, and say a guy changes back to normal before swallowing a mouthful of townsfolk. Does that make him a cannibal or just a meat and potatoes werewolf?
Crow, it's science fiction.
Oh, yeah, we're supposed to suspend our disbelief.
Finally, at the end of the movie, the director wakes up from his coma and decides to burn the entire set down.
Well, the wolf in him really enjoys the 7 vitamins and minerals.
I like that the Wolfman's able to keep his sport coat buttoned through all of this.
Ed, what are you doing?
Well, I'm thinking about killing you.
Pedro! Get back! Pedro! Pedro! Get back!
He's showing him how that choke chain feels.
And it don't feel good.
There's a lovely fire in the fireplace.
And the rest of the house. Isn't it weird how the whole house is on fire and it's still really dark?
Wait, this is wrong. Stop,
drop, and roll.
Always.
I thought it was duck and cover.
No, it's tuck and roll. Wait.
Oh, I forgot my teddy bear.
Oh, you wait here. I'll go get him.
Get the teddy bear, too.
I don't think he's getting him now. Yeah, I think that whole dad thing is pretty well scratched.
So that's it for this episode. Next up is Women of the Prehistoric Planet, a movie in color. color. That's Technicolor, Sonny. In 1966, finally we've reached the 60s, a decade that has a lot of great movies. This is not necessarily one of them, but still pretty enjoyable. And an interesting entry into the movies that were PG rated, but still trying to show some amount of sexiness. And the Mystery Science Theater crew makes this one quite enjoyable. Check out our playlist for all episodes of Fear Itself, which is finished, Monsters, which is finished, Tales from the Dark Side, More Than Halfway Done, Cowboy Bebop, Pet Shop of Horrors, Black Mirror, and of course Mystery Science Theater 3000. We do everything here at TV Anthology Reviews. Like, subscribe, and thanks.